Chriselda Lewis, who's going to give us an update at the Oscar Pistorius trial. Chriselda, good morning to you.
Well, a very good morning to you, Elvis.
Can you give us an update, Chriselda, and a recap of the 2 weeks of adjournment, and where do we stand right now?
Well, Elvis, you recall just before we adjourned 2 weeks ago, Roger Dixon, a forensic geologist, had given testimony about what he thought happened at the home of Oscar Pistorius on the morning of Valentine's Day, where he said he had done some tests on sound and light, but then again, after giving that testimony, he came under intense scrutiny, and his integrity was really torn apart by the state prosecutor, Chriselda, where he was questioned on his ability to even give testimony on those particular aspects, where he had to concede at the end that he was not an expert in any of the fields that he was testifying in. So it was really a beating for the defense. You would know before that Oscar Pistorius himself took a beating on the stand during cross-examination by the state prosecutor, Chriselda. So certainly the defense would look to try and recover in this, what we would call the last leg of this case of Oscar Pistorius, which we're expecting to come to an end next week, Friday. We've already heard the defense advocate, Barry Rue, indicate that he will be ready to end the case by next week, Friday. But of course, that will also be determined by Chriselda and how long he actually takes to cross-examine the witnesses that the defense is yet to call.
Now, do we know exactly what other witnesses are expected today to get on the stand on behalf of the defense team?
Well, one of two people will be called today, Elvis. First of all, Johan Stander, who is very much likely to take the stand this morning. You'd recall that Johan Stander was the very first person that Oscar Pistorius called after he had shot and killed Reeva Steenkamp. He was the first person at the scene. He was the person who also saw Oscar Pistorius carry Reeva Steenkamp from upstairs towards the bottom of the stairs, where we've heard in this case Oscar Pistorius had sobbed uncontrollably. What's very critical about his testimony is that he will give details of Oscar Pistorius's state of mind a few minutes after shooting and killing Reeva Steenkamp. I'm sure questions that will emerge from inside the court would be about Oscar Pistorius's reaction. What was he doing when Johan Stander was the first person to get to the scene? Was he crying? Was he inconsolable? So really details that will be critical to this case on Oscar Pistorius's reaction after he had shot and killed Reeva Steenkamp. The second person who is likely to take the stand would be Volley Varmarans. Volley Varmarans is the forensic expert, and he will certainly come in to try and counter the evidence that was given by ballistics expert Chris Mangena on behalf of the state. Now, Volley Varmarans is a ballistics expert. He's expected to give testimony on the trajectory as well as the sequence of the shots when they penetrated Reeva Steenkamp's body. But it's very likely that Johan Stander might take the stand first today.
At the start of the trial, there was a media frenzy, especially from the international media. What's happening today? Are they still there, or has the media contingent sort of waned off?
Well, these are certainly some of the biggest stories at this stage, Elvis, as you indicated in your intro. I mean, South Africa is going to an all-important election, and of course there's the Oscar Pistorius trial. The world's media is still here. Some of them are still camped out there doing their first crossings this morning, as you can see. Well, Oscar Pistorius arriving just a few minutes ago, again for the start of his trial. But really, for the South African media, I must say, the election certainly has overtaken the Oscar Pistorius case. For the international media, yes, the South African election is very important to see whether or how South Africans will vote following, well, given that this is the first election that South Africa goes to without former President Nelson Mandela. But certainly still quite a lot of media here. The interest is still very high. Some of Oscar Pistorius' supporters were also here. They hugged him this morning and also gave him some cards and gave some cards to his family as well. So certainly two very important stories that we'll be tracking. I'm sure SABC News is on top of all of that, but I'll be here outside and also inside here at the Oscar Pistorius murder trial.
Chriselda Lewis, thank you so much for that input and that story there from the Pretoria High Court, the North Gauteng High Court rather, where Oscar Pistorius' trial will resume in a short while. It's now time to take a break, but when